Okay, this is going to be a video about symmetry, the very basics of symmetry. I've got a default scene here. I'm going to add in a box, and we're just going to scale this down a little bit, rotate it over. The sphere is still here. And I'm just going to move this box up into kind of the upper right corner here of this area, this region. And I'm just going to use the grab handles to make it a little bit thinner. It's a primitive. And we'll just do something like that. I'll validate it. Maybe slide it over in position with the gizmo a little bit. Right now, by validating it, we just changed it from a very simple primitive into digital clay. And if we look at it under wireframe, it's pretty coarse in its grid resolution. If you tried to paint on it, it'd be very choppy, like a little retro video game. But I'm just going to divide it a few times so we can sculpt on it. That's good. Turn off multi-resolution, turn off the wireframe, and we've got our gizmo still on. And let me point out one thing here under the scene menu. As you toggle back and forth between the sphere and the box, the gizmo moves with it. And so if I turn off the gizmo and move back to the box, the gizmo's not going to show up. It's just traversing to the center of the mass by default of each piece. So I don't really need the sphere on here, but I will leave it on for a second. Okay, so back to the symmetry menu. So right now I've got symmetry turned on, and if I was to show you, I'm going to toggle on these X, Y, and Z, and as I do, it's defaulting. Look at this method here in the middle. This method, it tells you local symmetry will move along the mesh when you use one of the transform tools, the gizmo, or transform. In world, the symmetry plane is fixed and will not move. So, but if we actually look at this and just toggle between this, notice these markers that are turned on here. I'm going to pin this. So notice how the markers are moving between local and world. Okay. So right now I want to sculpt, and so I have local turned on, and it is enabled. And if I come over and hit the brush, okay, and I'm not quite sure how big this is, but if I just come in here and draw an arrow pointing to the corner here, well, because symmetry is turned on for X, Y, and Z, it's replicated into all four off the center of this one. And so that's the normal function of symmetry, is we're seeing it and we're using it, okay? So I'm just going to back up for a moment, turn off symmetry just to get the same arrow onto our piece, but only onto one quadrant. So with symmetry back on, I'm not going to be using this for drawing. I'm going to be using this. I want to jump down to this flip object section down here. So this is a way to manipulate your part. And while it's local, if I just come in and toggle this, you're flipping between the X negative to X positive and back, or Y negative to Y positive. And so you can traverse almost in a circle around your part. Now, if I was to switch back to world and do this, then what you can see is we're doing the same thing, except we're pivoting around the world origin. Yep. So that's what these little markers are doing here. They're showing you where your mirroring is happening, either by flipping down here or locally. And again, so as you're switching back and forth, play with this, open it up, play with it. You know, switch and flip back and forth, and then dance your piece around. And that's really, in essence, the main thing there. Now, those are the basics. I want to point out one other thing, is that depending on the context sensitivity of whatever you're using, like if you have the gizmo open, well, right now, look over here on the left side of the screen. I'm tapping over here because right next to it is the symmetry button. And so as I'm switching between world and local, there's a little L and a little W that's showing up here on the left. And also when I enable this and disable it, it's highlighting and not highlighting. Okay, so now another interesting thing is that you may switch to the gizmo And as soon as I turn on Gizmo and I come back and say enable, with Gizmo, that same button switched, but now it's up here above. It may relocate onto this toolbar, okay? So be aware of that. Now one other thing, I'm gonna turn off the Gizmo and it's back here kind of in the middle here, okay? Oops, it's interesting that we jumped our view. But what I want to also show you is that if you hold your finger down onto this, it opens up a little mini-me version of the symmetry panel that was over here on the right, okay? And with it open, you can even pin it. Oops, I didn't click it quite right. Come up and I'm going to click the little pin button, and now it'll stay open. So even if I come over and use Gizmo or whatever, it's still staying open. If I come over and switch between these other tools, it's staying open, okay? And so if you're doing a lot of work with symmetry, it may really be handy to just have this open and be aware that you can get to it right from here, okay? And you have to have it unpinned to be able to toggle it on and off. But yep, so it's just another way of accessing it, and just be aware that it's there for you to be able to use and, you know, quickly get to. So these other functions, like the mirror topology and that kind of stuff, we'll look at that in a subsequent video. Okay, so for now, this takes care of it. Just quick review. Toggle between local and world, local, world, and then traverse through the flip object. And here, back and forth, X, you keep hitting it, it's going from the negative to the positive side of X. Y, if you tap it, it's going between negative and positive side of Y. And then you can rotate all around your part. And then you can do it, switch to local, same, then it's within that world of itself that it's switching. Okay, so just play with it, toggle it back and forth until you get the results you want. That's the way to do it. Okay, and so that's the end of this.